Hey guys, algebra students. In this video we are going to learn about domain and range, and we're also going to visit those cell phone plan functions that we did last week. So we're going to change one slightly though. So last week we kind of talked about Verizon and then Virgin Mobile, and then this actually was the T-Mobile one. So we're gonna go over these. So again, last week we saw that the Verizon plan was $60 a month for the plan, X representing the number of months, and each one of these representing the total amount that you pay after X amount of months. So Verizon again was $60 each month, so that's 60X. But they didn't tell you about the taxes you'd have to pay on top of that. So those could be anywhere from between $0 to $25, let's say. Then this one, so again, this is Verizon. This was actually Virgin Mobile. Not sure why they wanted to call it W in the in the check your learning, but that's okay. So we'll call it W of X, meaning Virgin Mobile. It's $55, according to the one I looked up today, $55 per month for unlimited data. Plus you have to pay for the phone up front, $200, and then there's tax. There's also a little problem here, even though this sounds like a good deal. It said the first 10 gigabytes you'll get fast speeds, but then after 10 gigabytes of your data, if you use that up, you'll start getting 2G speed. So I guess there's an advantage to having 3 to 4 Gs with Verizon versus having 2G after 10 gigabytes. And then the very final one was the so we have a Verizon, Virgin Mobile. Here's T-Mobile 1. That's that plan I told you was all taxes included, $70 a month, and it's unlimited everything, which I kind of like. So these two are pretty compatible, but again, you could kind of see what you would want, So on your worksheet, it's gonna say that you found your functions for the 3 cell phone plans. Find the value of your functions at 0 and at 12. Actually, no, 6, sorry. So it says for number 1, it'll say find V of 0 and V of 6. And it says explain what it means then after you found it. Explain what it means in terms of the context. So in terms of the phone cost. So if we were to do, I'm just going to do 1 with you. You have to do 2 and 3, and then complete number 4 on your own. Okay, so make sure you do that. Don't leave it blank. But we're going to do 1 together. So for the Verizon one, let's say I'm doing this one. Find V of 0. That means I plug in a 0 into the Verizon function. So for that function, that's V of X equals 60X. So if I want to find V of 0, I do 6 times 0, which is 0. 60 times 0, sorry. And that would mean, so I would write on the side of it, that would be the total cost really at the start of the plan. So because it's 0 months, so you haven't started the plan yet. So that's 0 months at the start of the plan. Okay? Total cost, sorry, at the start of the plan. And then V of 6 would be 60 times 6. So again, using that same equation. 60 times 6 is 360. So that's, again, $360 is the total cost after 6 months, because remember the X represented the months. So that's what you need to do for 1, 2, and 3. Okay, you're going to plug in a 0 and a 6 for this one and explain what it means. Plug in a 0 and a 6 for that one, explain what it means. And then number 4, just write what you think would be the best plan for you. Like, what would you be willing to pay after I described those things to you? Then, module 3, we have steps 1 and 2, and they're linked together. We're talking about domain and range, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. So first of all, your domain has several different descriptions for it. It's the input, if you're looking at an equation or something. Also the x values. Okay, that's usually, like kind of what you saw up here. The x values represented the months. Okay, so the domain would have been the x values that were representing the months. It can also be the independent variable. Okay, and then another way I heard it described is what causes the outcome. I kind of liked that one. What causes the outcome? So the outcome would be like your total cost, but what causes the outcome will be like the months that you have the plan for. Okay, so that's what a domain is. Again, it's x values. That's the main thing to remember. And it's your input. It's what's in your equation. When you look up at your equations, what's the variable in your equations? That's your domain. Okay. The output, okay, is your range. So again, range has several names as well. And so we have input for your domain. So output is your range. It's also called the y values. Okay, or if you have a function, like let's say this is x, and then this is the range would be f of x or w of x or m of x. Those are the y values, the outputs. It's also the dependent variable because it depends on the x values. It depends on what you put in. It'll give you a value for whatever you put in, so it's dependent on the input. And then the last thing is, again, it's called, if the domain is called what causes the outcome, that's what goes in to the function. Then the outcome itself is the range. So as we do these problems, try to think about that, because what you want to do is identify the domain and range of each of these situations. There's also one other thing we were going to talk about according to the module, is whether or not something is continuous or discrete. So continuous means kind of like time, it goes on. You can have, like let's say fractions of things. So for example, like I said, time. If I work for 4.5 hours, okay, I can have a half an hour. I can work for 4.25 hours, so I don't necessarily just have to work for 4 on the dot. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4. I could do anywhere up to 4 hours. So that's what continuous is. And then discrete is, like I said, counting by numbers. Like let's say I am wrapping presents or something. I can wrap 1 present, 2 presents, 3 presents. I'm not going to wrap half of a present. Okay, so that's what discrete means. It's when you can include parts of something. All right, so we'll go over some examples of that. All right, so Usually you represent on a line. You'll have continuous functions or lines or curves, but they have, they kind of look like this. Whereas discrete functions, they might have little dots, okay? Or they might have, I guess another thing could be like this. It's called a step function. That's a little bit different too, okay? So those are discrete. All right, so now let's answer some of our questions. So the first question that we want to answer is find the domain and range of each function. Is it continuous or discrete? So the first one, the function, number one, d of h equals 60h. It says here describes how far you can drive going 60 miles per hour after h hours. So again, we want to think, what's our domain? What's our range? Is this going to be continuous or discrete? So remember I told you that the variable that's in the function is your domain, okay? So this is your domain. This is your range. And we're just going to have to write what it could be. But domain is the hours, like they said. The hours is the input. And then if you drive 60 miles per hour, that will tell you the distance you go. That's the range. That's the output. Okay? So we can say, okay, for time, if you started, you could start at 0 hours. Okay? And then you could go up to, let's say they just want you to go from 0 to 24 and then start the count again. So for our domain, we could say 0 is less than or equal to h with hours, which is less than or equal to 24 hours in a day. So that would be our domain. And I could say d with a colon, and then I say 0 is less than or equal to h, which is less than or equal to 24. For our range, though, okay, we've got to think, that's the output. So if, the way to find this is if you plug in a 0, if you look at your domain, you plug in a 0, 60 times 0 is 0. So that's if you have not gone, if you haven't moved, basically. So that would be 0 miles that you've traveled. Okay? And again, this is d of h, meaning it's the output. You can also, again, we refer to it, if this is x, this is y, but in our function, the domain is hours h, and the output is d of h, meaning we plugged it in. So let's say we plug in a 24 then. Okay, how far you could go in 24 hours. All right, so I would have to do 60 times 24, okay, because it's 60 times h. So that would end up giving me 1,440 miles. So the range again is miles, your domain is the hours. The range is the distance traveled, Distance traveled. So from 0 to 1,440 miles. And then, like I said, your domain is hours or time. Again, is time continuous or discrete? Well, time is continuous. Okay, so that's it. Number 2. For the second one, they want to know, at the end of each month, Megan donates $50 to the local homeless shelter. The function S of M equals 50M describes how much money Megan has donated after M months. But it also says, hint, Megan donates money at the end of each month. She has not donated any extra money after part of a month. So that tells me that this is going to be discrete. So if she gets halfway through the month, she's not going to donate half of 50. She's only going to donate at the end of the month. So you're never going to, it's not like she's paying a little bit each day or each hour or anything. So that's why it's discrete. So for our domain, okay, we can represent it with brackets, and we say, again, it's our input. This is the number of months. So let's say, again, at the first month, she hasn't donated anything, okay? 0 months, you could put in a 0. She hasn't donated anything. She's going to donate at the end of the month. Okay, so 0 would be representing month 1, technically. But at the end of the month, you know, she'll pay, you'll plug in a 1. But anyway, so again, each one of those months is your domain. So it's 0 months, 1 month, 2 months, and so on. So you put the little ... for so on. That's your domain. And so then, again, that's your months, and it's the input. The output is how much total she donates. Okay, so that's your range. That's the output. And so we just have to plug in, okay, 0 to figure out what our range would be. 0 times 50 is 0. 1 times 50 is 50. 2 times 50 is 100. And so on. Okay? So that would be our domain and range for this particular problem. And remember, it's discrete, because she's not going to be paying continuously. All right, so now, number 3. Number 3, Sean works at Burger King up to 25 hours a week and earns $8 an hour. The function f of x equals 8x describes his earnings, his total earnings, where x represents hours. Okay, so he can work up to 25 hours a week. So again, we have to decide what's the input of this. Well, remember, x represents the hours, so that is our input. Okay, so that's our domain. Domain is the x value, right? And again, that represents hours. So we have to think. First of all, is this going to be continuous or discrete? Well, it's continuous because he could work anywhere from 0 to 25. He doesn't have to work, 24, 23. He could work 22 and a half, and it would be fine. So we're allowed to include decimals and things like that. So this is actually continuous. This is a continuous function. And again, we have to figure out how to write our domain. And it's going to be like this. Okay? So again, our hours represented by x. So we have to say 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 25. Because he can only work up to 25 hours. So then our range would be, plugging in 0 for x would be 8 times 0. That's 0. That's if he doesn't work at all. And then again, this is f of x or y. It's another way to think of it. So 0 is less than or equal to f of x or y, which is less than or equal to 8 times 25. So 25 times 8 is actually 200. So he could earn up to $200 per week. Anywhere from $0 to $200 per week. So again, this the f of x is the dollars or the cost. That's going to be your range. That's going to be the amount he's paid, I guess. That's what I'm saying. Amount he's paid each week. So there's that one. And the final one is number 4. That one is going back to the Virgin Mobile cell phone plan. It can be modeled 55x plus 200. Okay, so that's the Virgin Mobile cell phone plan. And again, W of X is your total cost for the plan after so many months. X represents the number of months. So again, the X value is your domain. It's the input. And W of X is your range. So for your domain, just have to scoot that over there. How many months? So basically we could start from 0 months and up. We're not going to have any negative months or anything like that. So from 0 and up, we can have, we can actually say X, instead of saying 0 is less than or equal to X, which is less than or equal to infinity, instead of saying that, which you could write, because it could go on forever, you can just say X is greater than or equal to 0. That's your domain. Because it could be anywhere from 0 and up. And then for your range, now this is the thing, if I plug in a 0 here, 55 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 200 is actually still 200. So for your, again, W of X, it actually starts off at $200. It's $200 and up, okay? And once again, normally you would think, is this discrete or is this continuous? Well, technically, you could think it was discrete, but the thing is, let's say you quit the plan after 2.5 months. They're still going to charge you for that half of the month. So really, this is continuous, okay? Because they could charge you for parts of months and stuff like that. The final thing that you have to do is graph the discrete one, I believe. Or no, so we said number 2. I think I said graph number 2, which is the discrete one. All you have to do is put in some of these points. So you're going to just, when you go to Desmos, you're going to put in these points. Just put in a few of them, kind of like this. Put in several of these points, and it'll show on the graph, it should show something, along these lines. All right? So it should look like that. No line through it, just points. Okay? So I want you to show me that one, graph that one, and then pick one of the other ones in here. So let's say you pick number 3 for the amount that Sean works. You would say y equals 8x. And then it should look like a line. That's what a continuous function looks like. So remember, this is a discrete, this is a continuous.